As the year comes to a close and as we enter 2023, there is still so much more of the recent Drug Wars content to release. There's so much drip fed content, and I have made videos in the past on a couple of like the vehicles and some of the other unreleased like free mode events. In this video, I wanted to go over the part 2 of the missions, the last dose missions. When should you expect those to release? We're going to look at stuff Rockstar has actually come out and said. We're going to take a look at what the game files gives us. And hopefully by the end of this video, you'll have a much better idea as to when to expect these next batch of missions. Now, as far as what these next batch of missions are even going to be, we're still a little confused. We know the cutscenes, and I'll show a couple of pieces of those cutscenes from those last batch missions, but there really was no like cliffhanger in the first batch of missions, so I guess it's literally just gonna pick up from some random spot. But as far as when they will release, so this was an official article posted to billboard.com, where this was a Rockstar approved article. They gave a little interview. As you can see from the title here, they're talking about the score from the newest DLC. If we scroll all the way down to the bottom, and I don't believe they've actually mentioned this in their newswire, at least not specifically about the missions, but they clearly state that part 2 of the Los Santos Drug Wars DLC is set to release for early 2023. So that's what Rockstar is telling us, early 2023. Now, when is that specifically? So this picture here is of the release order for the vehicles that were in this DLC. Now, of course, these top couple of ones, these are the ones that already came out. Entity 3, the Tulip, the Journey, the Surfer, the R300, the Tahoma also came out, but we still have the Brigade and the Taxi. Now, we're going to hop into a very crudely created Photoshop here. We have months, and then we have that same list. Now, again, we can just sort of scratch out the ones that already came out. So we'll get rid of those. And remaining, we have about 10 vehicles to release on the websites. And what Rockstar's done in the past is each week they'll release a vehicle, but they might not. And that's where things get a little weird. But we'll just assume each week there's going to be a new vehicle. Now we'll have to wait until tomorrow to see if it's going to be, if the first vehicle is going to be the Brigade or the Power Surge here. Obviously, we already have the Brigade, but it's not on the website. They're going to enable it on the website so you can just buy it straight up and not do the missions. And that's going to count as a drip feed week. The same thing with the Taxi. You can already get a Taxi in the Arena War, but I guess if you just want to buy a Taxi, it'll be like 500K and you can get it. Again, I made videos on all of these a couple of days ago. I'll leave a link to it at the top right if you want to check those out. Now, I don't have December here because, I mean, we have one day of December, the 29th. So let's just assume that tomorrow we get the Brigade. So let's just assume this one is going to be the 29th. Then that brings us to January 5th as the next date for the next vehicle. And let's just, look, we're just going to go in order here. So let's just say the Taxi comes out on the 5th. Then on the 12th, let's say the Power Surge comes out. And then just continuing, we'll get the 19th. That'll be the Issy, the new SUV. The 26th of January will be the Broadway, the one that has a pretty cool taxi livery. Then we get into February on the 2nd. That'll be the Panther. And then on the 9th, we'll get the Everon, which is another sports car. And then finally, we'll get to the 16th, and that will be the Virtue. Now, the reason this Virtue, again, sorry for the terrible presentation here, but this Virtue is going to be a vehicle that releases with the next batch missions. And before we go away from this little picture here, so just remember the February 16th date, if we just follow the line every week, there's a new vehicle. That is when the Virtue will come out. And here was a tweet from Fun MW2 talking about how the Virtue, the trade price of it, because normally I think it's like 3 million, the trade price knocks it to like 2.2. It actually requires you to complete the last dose BDKD mission to get that trade price. So the conclusion we can come to is whenever this Virtue releases, that is when the next batch of missions is going to release. So that February 16th date, that might be when we get the next batch of missions. So that sort of fits with the early 2023 time frame that Rockstar has given. I mean, any later, and I don't know if I would necessarily consider that early 2023, like if they do push it somehow to March. But the 16th, that is around the dates, maybe the end of February. Those are the dates you should be expecting these next couple of missions. Now, what does slightly throw a wrench in this is all of these other events. So here's just a list. I mean, the vehicles, I mean, we already talked about those. The pistol and the snowman collectible and the gooch, you know, that all came out. But there's still quite a bit of stuff remaining. I mean, there's the new garage. That might, you know, be a specific week they release that. The actual taxi jobs, like the new missions, maybe those will just be bundled with the taxi, the vehicle releasing. So that would make sense. Maybe that's not a separate week. But the gun van, you know, that's something that's coming out. The daily collectibles, the G's caches, those, again, a new event. The stash house, the street dealers, the Merryweather convoy, all the things we've talked about. These are all new events coming that Rockstar could very well say, you know what, let's not release a vehicle like a certain week. Let's just release one of these new events. And that's how they could extend the drip feed. And if they do that, then that's why that February 16th date might be pushed a little further back. I mean, it's not coming out any time before the 16th, unless they just completely change the order of this list. Like, they have to abide by this list because that's how it is in the game files, and that's how it's worked for the last couple of DLCs. They follow this list pretty strictly. So the February 16th date is pretty much the first date that it could come out, but it could come out later because of those other events. Now, as far as what the part 2 missions will even be about, so this might be a little bit of a spoiler. So if you don't want to, you know, spoil yourself on these missions for whatever reason, maybe skip this part. I'm not going to show the entire cutscene, but in disregard Franklin, that was just a mod to get like that would be our character. So Franklin isn't coming back. I know that'd be too cool, but yeah, it's not happening. That's just our character. But the missions start, I guess, with Lab Rat actually getting kidnapped. We're gonna just skip ahead here. Crazy antics, of course, in the freak shop. They're shooting RPGs all around, but eventually, in the end, he gets kidnapped. And I guess that's part 2. So he gets kidnapped, and we have to do a couple of missions and figure out who kidnapped him, why, and get him back. And eventually, the way the car comes into play, Dr. Friedlander, who was Michael's therapist in single player, which apparently a lot of us thought he was dead because you can kill him in single player, but he's not. He is somehow involved in this DLC. He comes back, and the Virtue, the new supercar, is actually his vehicle. So you do the mission for him, and I'm not entirely sure how he's involved, but you do that mission, and then you unlock his vehicle that you can buy. So these part 2 missions look to be pretty interesting, but yeah, we are going to be waiting a couple of months before they do release. So again, middle of February, maybe towards the end of February. I wouldn't expect them any later. So hopefully you have a better idea as to when to expect these releasing if you just want to chill in GTA Online until they do come out. Now you know, end of February, that's sort of the likely release date. And by the way, here, I don't know if this is a Rockstar logic, but here's the little post from the news article in GTA. The shrink is dead. He died. So somehow he came back. I wonder if they'll explain that maybe in these missions. Also, in these part 2 missions, there's going to be some pretty crazy stuff. I mean, the cargo plane comes back. Like, I've seen a couple of cutscenes with the giant cargo plane. And if somehow this guy's rising from the dead, these missions may be pretty decent, at least compared to the first batch of missions. But now you know when they should release. Anyway, that's going to do it for the video. Thank you all for watching. Please drop the video a like if you did enjoy. Subscribe for more GTA content. And as always, I'll see you all in the next one.